Abbas Gullet. I'm a Kenyan. My forefathers came from northern Kenya, but my home is in Mombasa, where I grew up. My parents died when I was very young, so I don't remember both of them. But I was adopted in Mombasa, and I grew up in Mombasa as a child and did my basic education there. I have been with the Red Cross, Kenya Red Cross, and the Red Cross movement in general for about 42 years this year. And of these 42 years, 11 years were as a volunteer in a local branch in Mombasa, and then the other 31 years as a paid staff of the Red Cross. In 2001, January 26th of January 2001, I was seconded by the International Red Cross, who was then my employer, to come to Kenya Red Cross and work for this society on secondment for 2 years. In 2000, at the end of 2000, this society was equated to a leaking bucket because it had basically been mismanaged. It had been mismanaged by those who were entrusted in leadership, both in governance and in management. And at the end of 2000, this society had a financial deficit then of $500,000, which was then equal at the time to about 23 million Kenya shillings. And the society was just about being auctioned. Then the value of the society, of course, was close to maybe the same, 23, 25 million was the value of what the society had. So if everything had been even confiscated and sold, then the society probably would have been at zero, and it would have had to probably be declared bankrupt. But the interesting thing is the society itself decided with some people in the leadership who were opposed to those who were in power, both in management and governance, they decided to make changes. They decided that enough was enough. The society was not respected. The society was seen to be highly corrupt, and that a big program they had then was, after the US Embassy bomb blast, the society was given quite an amount of support through the USAID and OFDA for education, for psychosocial support and counseling, for relief work. But unfortunately, even those resources were mismanaged until all donors had basically packed up and gone and said they couldn't work with what they then called a leaking bucket, that you put in and nothing remained, everything disappeared. So it reached a point where the society headquarters was basically being closed down. But long story short, in those couple of years, the major challenge were three fronts. And the three fronts were, number one was the financial challenges the society was then facing, because there were court cases every day. Second was the image of the society and its own credibility of accountability and transparency. But the third was the lack of new business, because we had staff that were there that were basically civil servants who had the mentality of civil service and not wanting to be very aggressive in what they did, and the quality was very poor. So simultaneously, one had to deal with all the three issues at the same time. So long story short, it was very interesting to go and also negotiate with the tax people, the NHIF people, to say the penalties had become bigger than the principal, in fact. Okay? So if you don't pay, the penalties keep on accruing and accruing and accruing. But all said and done, by November of 2011, we had managed to zero out that debt, so that real work then could begin of now rebuilding this institution. The new development that you see here took place in the last 10 years, I would say. The whole issue of sustainability is something that has been very dear to for me personally in my heart, but also in the heart of many in the society. And what had always kind of excited us was, in this country, for example, is to see the church. The church was very much against the issue of lands and land reforms, because they own huge amount of land in this country. And I may be wrong, but that's my perception. But land, I said, is the government, is KWS, is Kenya Railways, and then the church probably, if you look at the amount of land that they own. But YMCA and YWCA are also the other lot that inspired us. If you see, they have youth hostels not very big ones, both YMCA and YWCA, and it's just the idea of owning these properties. And I think they borrowed from YMCA International, because you could go to Europe and you go to youth hostels that are owned by YMCA, YWCA. So for Kenya Red Cross, like many of us in this room, are totally dependent on aid from outside and from financing from partners, donors. Kenya government is supposed to finance Kenya Red Cross, but they have not financed us in the last 30 plus years. Not one penny. But we said we were not going to sit back, and especially coming from the financial mismanagement of the 90s and early 2000s, we said we should now think out of the box and do things differently. And this is why we went into these investments that we have gone into more recently, which obviously has been questioned. In the context of the Red Cross, Red Crescent globally, our international partners were not amused and were not happy when we decided to go into these kind of ventures. And we were not surprised with that, and are not surprised with it even today. But the fact of the matter is we are masters of our destiny. We make our decision as independent national organization, and we will take responsibility for this destination and the journey that we travel. When we had an idea, as like earlier said, it was about YMCA, YWCA type of facility. We wanted to have like a youth hostel kind of thing, or a small conference center, which is previously called the Red Court. Now the name has been changed to Boma Inn. So we said we could build something with about 140 million shillings. So we had two properties, one on Chaka Road and one the old headquarters, which we decided we will sell. We had a very progressive board. Sometimes the challenge is in the boards. Boards do not want to get into this risky business of investments if we are not very good at it. So, but we had a board that decided, no, we are serious about our own independence, financial independence, but even independence in thought and in mind would be very good if we can look at investment. There were some board members, of course, who said, you can't sell those properties. They're too dear to our heart. Let's keep them. But we said, let's look at the financial aspect of it. Value, and even if you are to rent, what do you get as an income? We were getting peanuts as an income. So we decided to sell the two properties and have a seed money to start this work. And with that seed money, we were able to raise money through our programs that we were doing. And at the end of the day, it costed us close to $8 million to build the two properties. First, the hotel, the conference center, and the office block that has been rented out to various parties. Of that, we were able to raise 80% locally. So our partners who were skeptical, because it was meant to be a disaster management center to train on emergencies and disasters, they finally came around and gave us the difference of the 20%. And so when we finished that construction, we had no debt on it. It was all clean and no loans to worry about. We then said it now changed from being a conference center and a youth hostel to actually a full-fledged 3-star hotel. And we said at the time, should we run a hotel? Do we have the capacity? Do we have the know-how? Or should someone else run for us? So we had serious discussions with other hotel chains in town, largely local national hotels, including the Holiday Inns, Protea of the South Africans. But at the end of the day, when we really did our own assessment analysis, we found that if we gave what they call a turnkey project to somebody to come and manage it for you, you would be just running at a loss totally, and you will not make any money. So we decided, should we then run it ourselves? And we said yes. But we said, look, I don't have an experience in running any hotel, so I'll be kidding myself. So, and this is what normally happens with a lot of organizations. The CEO of the organization becomes the CEO of everything there, and we start running it in the normal Juakali way. And we said, no, we don't have to do it. Let's own up and let's get a professional management. So we set up a company, limited by guarantee, 100% owned by the Red Cross, but limited by guarantee with its own board and its own management and its own legal entity, that it can be sued and it could sue. So once we went that way, then we said, okay, we're going to we registered the company, It was not very easy because we're limited by guarantee in this country. People have misused that position, so going through NSIS for registration, it was not an easy thing. But we got it finally, thank God. And then we started looking for professional management or staff from the hotel industry to come and run. So we got a hiring firm, one of the recruitment firm, to advertise the job for us, to go and do the search for us and come back and do the interviews. And we just got in the final interviews when people had been shortlisted. So that's how it started to be run. And in our first strategic thinking, and we had a board, and we had a very good board from the private sector and from the public. So Kenya Red Cross, probably I was the only one sitting on the board representing the owners, but the rest were people from outside in the private sector and from the industry. So we realized very quickly that it was not going to be easy, so we did a strategic plan for the hotel. And what we said we were going to be different was, are we going to compete with the big names in this town, or what we're going to do? So our priority was to say that we're going to run what we call meeting places. We wanted to be the preferred place of choice for people to go for meetings. So our primary core business is selling meetings like this one. And we say, and additionally, we have accommodation if you're interested to spend a night at the hotel. So that's how it started. Now, going back to this whole issue of sustainability, in the whole of Africa, for Red Cross Red Crescent, there's not a single society in Africa, sub-Sahara of Africa, but even if I say the whole of the continent, even in the 5 Arab countries, Egypt, Libya, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, not a single society can pay their core cost, let alone their program cost. And what has driven us is to say we want to be the first one to be able to pay its core cost. If you have to have independence of mind, you must also have that independence of the pocket. And this is what we all aspire for. What we also know that is globally over the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years, the aid industry has not been increasing in terms of the pocket size of what the donors are giving. And the donors are the same. It's US government, it's the European Union, it's the European governments, it is Japan, Australia, and maybe South Korea coming into the picture now. There's no new money coming in. There are huge change. The economic difficulties in Europe and in North America, in the developed world, or global economic challenges that have been there over the last 10 years, the aid package is not increasing. Yet the number of humanitarian organizations, civil societies, NGOs are increasing by the day. And all are fighting for the same piece of pie. Whether it's the UN, whether it's us NGOs, local and international, we are literally stepping on each other's toes. Okay, fighting. All of us will go for that foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, we'll go to AID, we'll go to AFDA, we'll go to DFID and JZ and who else? JICA, or wherever they are, we go to the same, all of us, trying to outdo each other, which is the reality. So the fittest and the fastest and the sweetest talkers would survive. The rest of us, we will start struggling. Our NGOs are in this country fighting for the same piece of pie with we national organization. And here I become very nationalistic. If I were in the good government of Kenya or even Tanzania or Uganda, I would say no NGOs should operate in these countries. Nothing against them as organizations. But why should we be fighting for the same piece of pie with them in these countries? Resources meant for these countries and for the people of these countries. We've been part of the problem, if we're honest and look at each other in the eye. And then the issue of transparency. So if we're holding government accountable and transparent, how accountable, how transparent are we ourselves in the first place? And can we be living in glass houses and be the first one to throw stones out there? And this is the challenge across the board. So what we have said in Kenya Red Cross is we will try to hold ourselves to the best standards of ethics, that all board members, first of all, have the owners of the Red Cross in Kenya is actually you Kenyans who are in this room and outside. whether you're members or not, because you're stakeholders. But there are those who are members, who have paid their membership, and who, through this membership, elect leadership to manage and govern the society for and on their behalf from one AGM to the next AGM. So we have, for example, 64 local branches. We have 47 county offices. We have 6 regional offices that were provisional. We have 1 national headquarters. We have now close to 100,000 volunteers. And these are volunteers that are community-based, that we can use them as and when the need arises. They have been trained when there are disasters. People know Red Cross. Yes, our mission and vision is to be first in, last out in any emergency, any disaster in this country, which we actually do. But more importantly, we wanted to be the most grassroots-based organization, community-based organization. But accountability and transparency, after the past mistakes of the 90s and early 2000s, we said enough was enough. So we turned the page. We want to be the most credible, most accountable, most trusted and reliable partner to Kenyans in emergencies and also in development. The board is elected every 3 years. The president of the board, who is the governor, can serve 2 terms of 6 years maximum. And the board members must rotate at a branch level, at a regional level, and at a national level. The board then sets policies, and they hire the management. The management is led by a secretary general and the rest of the staff at a national level, at a regional level, at a branch level, at a project level. Every board member, when they're elected at all levels, at a branch, at a region, at a national, they must declare their assets and wealth the day they're elected, and once they're now serving on that board. And it's done on annual basis, and there'll be a confidential envelope that they will all have to state clearly what they own. That is parked somewhere. And after the term is over, if there are any allegations of this person having become overly rich overnight, then this can be checked across to compare if this was an illicit or illegally gotten wealth through the Red Cross. The management, starting with the Secretary General, to all the senior staff, they must also do the same. They must declare the asset and wealth, and this will be put there. So these things are just tools that are there that have been kept just for checks and balances, that everyone must comply. The issue is compliance at the end of the day. But for us, the issue of financial sustainability and financial independence is ingrained, enshrined in every staff of the organization and the key volunteers. We eat, we sleep, we dream about financial sustainability and independence in all that we do. So we've really now moved on to do other businesses. One of the businesses that we set up 5 years ago now, apart from the hotel, and I'll come back to the hotel, is about pre-hospital care. And the pre-hospital care, about when I came back 10 years ago, I think 2nd or 3rd year in my business, yes, I'll be very quick. In my business was where one of our senior staff was involved in a road accident. And in that accident, we had a medical cover, but we could not get an ambulance to take this person from outside Thika on the Muranga Road. She was going to Isiolo at about 6 in the evening. And I had been called by the late Foreign Minister Godana to say one of your staff, who was his relative, was involved in an accident. So when we looked for an ambulance, even with the medical cover, was only AR then had ambulance services, but they could not go out in the evening. So I made it my business. That was, I think, 2008 or 2007. But I made it my business to say that never again would my staff be involved in an accident, and we as Red Cross cannot even provide an ambulance for that person, pre-hospital care. So in 2010, we started with 5 state-of-the-art ambulances. Minister Anyang' Nyong'o flagged them off here, 5. With 5 ambulances, we were the largest private ambulance owners in Kenya. Many of you Kenyans don't know this. But just with 5 ambulances, I can talk about Uganda and Tanzania, and I don't need to even talk about that. But today, 5 years later, we are the largest private ambulance owners in sub-Sahara of Africa, outside South Africa, with 128 ambulances. But we are now in negotiation with NHIF because of the new rates to cover the 5 million contributing members, which I suppose you would be included, and 4 members of their families Starting 1st of July, if all goes well, we're looking at 15 to 20 million new members through NHIF that we would provide ambulance services for. So it means we have to increase our fleet by 100%. So look for another 100 to 128 ambulances to be able to meet these numbers. So the ambulance business that we invested about 180 million shillings in 2008 up to 2010 to 2013, we were running at a loss. But we invested about 180 million. It was valued last year for the first time. It turned out to be profitable now. It was valued recently, about a couple of months ago. So the value today is about 1.4 billion Kenya shilling is the value of that company. But if we get the new business we're looking at, then the value would be about easily over 5 billion Kenya shilling. Okay? If we value this hotel with its loan, and we haven't done the valuation, but very easily this value of this hotel would be, it's about $34 million what we have now used, but I think it will double or triple up of that figure very easily. And if we put all the 3 hotels easily, it would not be less than $100 million. So for me, I would say from being in financial deficit in 2001 or 500,000 US dollars, today this company, if all put together, it would easily be over $150 million. Not to say we have money in the bank, but in assets and all that. Okay? We have just started a hotel business, and I think time is running out. We've started a hotel school. And today, this will become the biggest thing in Africa, and I'm quite confident of that. We started only in March this year with a Swiss school called Alpine Center. We advertised, and today we have started already the first class. On the 25th of May, we already had the first class, and people are paying for these classes, offering Swiss qualifications and Kenyan qualifications. We already have first 40 students that started class on the 25th of May. We in fact have 3 kids from Tanzania who are here. The next intake would be September, and in September we already have a much higher intake than this one already. The ultimate aim is about 400 students. So we're saying we want to build a Pan-African brand of a hotel school, and we also want to build the Boma to become a Pan-African brand in the long run. Maybe